Hi, I'm Susie Costin, and I'm the National Shelter Director at Farm Sanctuary in Watkins Glen, New York. And I'm here with Ari, who is our newest arrival and our sleepiest arrival. And today we are going to be talking about life after industrial farming. This is the first part of the series, and we're going to focus on dairy cows today. Ari is a little dairy calf. Ari actually just came in because, like so many calves every single year, he was actually inside his mother, who was sent to the sale. She was a culled dairy cow, and culled dairy cows are actually cows that are only about 4 years old. Our cows live to be about 20 years old and more. Some of them live up to 30. So culled dairy cows now are usually about 4 years old, and when you say culled, it's the ones that they feel are no longer productive, and they send them to the auction. So his mother was sent to the auction. She was probably terribly stressed. She gave birth in the auction barn, and they went ahead and sold her. When calves like Ari arrive, the very first thing we do is a full body check. We're trying to see if anything is in pain and he has any joint swelling or heat. These guys are extremely prone to what's called navel ill, because in the industry, and especially with someone like Ari that we know did not get his mother's colostrum, when they're born into this industry and they're not getting enough colostrum, that is their only source of antibodies. That's what they get from their mother for the first 24 hours. So if he doesn't get enough of that in 24 hours, he can get very, very sick. Dairy cattle carry a lot of diseases, and a lot of the diseases that this calf could have won't necessarily show up until they're about 4 years old, including Johne's disease, which is one of the more prevalent diseases that we see in dairy cattle. The other diseases that we're already testing him for are bovine viral diarrhea, bovine leukemia virus. There's a whole plethora of diseases that we're doing blood work for right now. Some of the diseases they carry are obviously fatal. Some of the diseases they carry they can actually live with, but they may have to live at a different part of our farm. We have animals broken up by conditions that they have. We have had calves with Johne's disease on the farm. But again, that disease doesn't even show up until they're 4 years old, and you cannot test for it. So it's one of the things that when you do these rescues, you always have to be aware that down the line there can still be problems, all based on where they came from and how they were treated before they got here. Now that we've covered the health issues and the things that we see when we bring calves onto the farm, we're going to run down to our main area and see our adult cattle. A lot of the cattle that we bring in from the dairy industry are adults when they arrive, and they have very, very different needs and very different health issues. So we're going to run down there and meet some of our adults. This is Melinda, and Melinda is one of the dairy cattle that arrived here as an adult. Melinda arrived with very severe mastitis. That mastitis caused her to go septic, so it was a blood-borne infection, like it was in her bloodstream. Because of that, she got a condition that didn't allow her to form platelets in her blood, and she had all of the tissue where she got shots, or she had to have fluids, or all the things that they did to try to save her. The skin actually died, so she has lots and lots of scars. Behind me is Fannie. Fannie was actually a downer at one of our local stockyards. She was considered a dairy cow that was spent, and spent meaning she was between 4 and 5 years old at the time, and she was no longer of any value to them because her legs were actually breaking down. A lot of what we see when these cows come in are they have horrible leg infections in their hocks because they're down on concrete so often. No one's taking care of their feet, so they have very overgrown feet. All of these things contribute to them being very lame. Lame cattle are no good for the industry, so they are sent to slaughter. Our oldest cows, our oldest dairy cows that live on this farm are between 25 and 30 years old. So dairy cows can have a long, long life, long after they are considered spent and they are taken to these sales. Fannie, as you can see, has a docked tail. Tail docking is another big thing that we see in the adults that come from the industry. A lot of the females used in dairy have their tails actually docked. It's a really, really horribly painful procedure. They do not use anesthesia. It's actually cutting through bone to take off the tail. That does not allow them when they're outside to swat flies and do all the things that they would naturally do with that tail. So thank you very, very much for joining us for the first of our series on life after industrial farming. And as you can see, one of the best parts of life after industrial farming, if you come to Farm Sanctuary, is that you get to live out your life and be the animal that you were supposed to be. So hopefully you'll get to visit us sometime and meet all these wonderful dairy cows, and join us for the next part of the series, which will be discussing pigs.